We go through and hide a bunch, probably 80% of the applications, because they don't really apply to us. Because what we are looking for are things that are surprise and delight. And so then we come to our board meeting, which meets in person, with, if there's one that has more votes than any other. This is the one, it's okay with everybody? All right, it could be a 5-minute thing, it's done. Or here's 3 that got the top votes. We'll discuss that. Or this past Monday, we brought 2 that got the most votes, and no one was really excited about either one, and so we didn't fund either one. We're keeping the money for next month. So that's how we do it. Jesse, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
All right. So remember, if you would speak into the mic, even though you won't know that you're speaking into the mic, let us know how your chapter decides on grants, okay?
Yeah, so basically the way that our chapter's organized, it's a little loose in terms of like who's ever actually going to attend. So, you know, we might have 3 people, we might have 12 people that show up. So it's kind of hard to...
And if we have 2 people show up, they get to make the decision. Whoever shows up makes the decision.
Yeah, exactly. It's whoever's at the meeting, and we do a combination, virtual and in person, whenever the space is available. Sometimes, you know, a rental or somebody's using the space and we can't, you know, get into our nonprofit space. So we meet the monthly meeting, take a vote. The curation's usually done beforehand in terms of like, you know, removing any things that truly don't apply. We have a pretty robust nonprofit or for-profit business small development center. So they handle everything that's like, I want to start a business. Well, okay, here's $14,000 worth of benefits you can get from the Small Business Development Center. Why are you asking us for one kind of deal? So we send them over there. All the other stuff, you know, we review that. The fanfare plays on. We review those day of. I usually follow up with an email to the people discussing what we went over. So like if any discussion that we had, it's not quite form letter-ish in that sense. You know, it's not like New York has their 10 bullet points. If I had to do 280, I would just do 10 bullet points too. But what I do is I take notes and I say specifically, and I try to coach people on how their grant, you know, could improve. And that's why we have so many resubmissions that get funded, is because we coach them kind of through the grant process.
Great.
And then winners obviously get a winning email.
Great.
So we go through all the, all trustees go through all the submissions, click awesome on whatever you want to advance to discussion. We take the top, we take any proposal that got 3 or more votes out of that. And then from there, this is an awkward position.
You could stand up.
I could. And then from there, we prioritize some of our key values are high impact for the $1,000. What else do we talk about all the time? Now I'm blanking. Common values. I'm sorry, I'm on the spot here. Yeah, let's go with that. Maximum impact for the $1,000. We talk about that a lot. And clear use of what you're going to do with the funds.
Do you want to say anything else?
No, Terry pretty much summed it up for our board. And, you know, vote online, and then we get the top 2 or 3. Or one. And have our meeting. And
at Lake Eola Wine.
Yes, at a very lovely place. And pick the winner.
Great.
Or if it's not one that resonates with all of us at the meeting, like this past one, we'll save the money and go to the next one.
Great.
And we have a great time, and it's awesome.
And I don't know about you, we don't have that many of our trustees that actually vote. So the top winner might have gotten 3 votes. Yeah.
Okay, well, in Pittsburgh, we have kind of similarly, we all, our dean goes through and recommends the ones that she thinks we should look at, and then also includes the non-recommended book deals and all that kind of stuff. We all vote, again, in advance. We pick all the ones, like the top vote getters, anybody with a first place vote, because we pick 3. And then we also give people the chance to advocate for the ones that they really like. I think much like others, we argue about them. We often don't pick one of the top vote getters. Somebody will make a passionate plea for one that maybe slipped under our radar down in the non-recommended list or something like that. And then we vote. And then it's consensus. We do paper ballots sometimes. We do hand raise sometimes. It can get heated once in a while. It hasn't recently, but it used to a lot. Like hurt feelings heated.
That was when 1,000 meant a lot more.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Everyone's like, it's only like $400 value now. I think that's everything. And then we keep them in the running for 3 months. And so if anyone that got a first place vote will show up in the next month. And anybody, if we're like, it didn't get a first place vote, but please keep it in. I only didn't vote because they're not doing it for 4 months or something, and I really liked it. I just didn't want to, use a vote on it.
Okay?
So normally,
You have to speak up because it doesn't.
Okay. Normally, the way that we do it is everyone will go on the website, put their clicks in, as many clicks as you want, and then the people who essentially vote are the ones who come to the meeting. We always meet in person, whether that's taking turns hosting or going somewhere for our meeting. And it's mostly based off of enthusiasm. We'll probably start with the ones that have the most clicks, and then people will pitch the ones they're most enthusiastic about. We talk about it the whole meeting, and then normally in like the last 10 or 15 minutes of the meeting, that's where we make a decision. And if there was nothing that we got really excited about, then maybe we go to our holdovers list from previous months. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Joel.
So we do have spreadsheets. We have a Google Sheets document for all our data, and on it, anybody who's in the chapter who feels like the thing they were most excited about didn't get funded, they can put it on the holdovers list. And it ends up being that just a few get on the holdovers list, and we can check back with them whenever we remember to or feel like it or anyone suggests it. So that's a big part of it. But we definitely emphasize discussion rather than voting.
I wanted to add something about Pittsburgh that might kind of reference, but maybe just to make more clear. As Ellie was talking about sort of the clicks, we don't vote within the website, and that's because we wanted to be able to rank in order to show, like, this is my preferred one. Like, yes, I think this one's awesome, but, like, this is the one that I like most. And so we have a Google form where the dean puts all of the project titles in there, and then we can rank first, second, and third, which does mean then that we don't know what your fourth favorite was, but you can express that at the meeting. And also, prior to the
So it's ranked choice voting.
Kinda. It's not like, with ranked choice, if you don't, your first one's eliminated, your second one moves up. It's not quite like that, but we have like a weighted system. So if you gave something a first place vote, it gets 3 points. And so then we're like adding up these points, and the dean is handling that. So when we come to the meetings, we can see which one, got the most points, as second most, and so on. And then we kind of discuss them in that order, only really looking at the ones that are towards the top of the list.
I don't know, this was a helpful hack for us. Like, it actually made the meetings better. When we first started talking about the projects, you could only say positive things. So instead of somebody saying, I really like this one because it's going to help homeless people, and somebody else going, do we really need to help the homeless people? Like, you weren't allowed to do, and no one said that. We sort of took away you can't start listing cons until we've gotten pros for all the projects. We don't formally do that anymore because I think it just sort of seeped into how we do things, but it was a necessary change to how we did things, and I think it made the meetings a lot better.
And I will give DC credit. We copied that from them.
Copy everything.
Yeah, seriously. I also wanted to say, before the pandemic, we always met in person, and then obviously went solely online. And the last few years, we've kind of done a mix of both. And so we hope that's accomplishing like the best of both worlds, the convenience and the camaraderie.
We took a hiatus during the pandemic.
One other thing that we do, just to emphasize, we don't use the clicking on the website as a vote. We click, or you could say it's a vote, but it's not a vote for who to give the grant to. It's a vote for who to discuss. So if there's a really outlandish, weird one that no one wants to give the grant to, but everyone wants to discuss, it might get a lot of clicks.
You wanted it? Me? Okay. I was asking the dean if he wanted to talk about it. What's that? Thank you. Joe, representing Gainesville, everyone. Our system is similar. We have a 3-point system. The dean will go through the list and bring or kind of filter them, is the best way to put that, just to get the ones that don't really follow our mission. And then he'll send that doc out to everybody. Everybody can discuss it. And we have some people who can't attend in person for some medical reasons, so they can submit via email or by proxy, and then pretty much everybody else has to show up to vote within reason. But yeah, we'll get the smaller list. We'll discuss a lot. Gainesville's a really small town, so there's in the nonprofit world and a lot of the fundraising world, we have a lot of connections. So we there's some history there. We know these people maybe. So just out of for the kind of the point of we want to make sure we're giving to something that we think can be done and the impact it can have locally. We do have discussions about that, and then we go to a voting system, and the winners win. Do we carry over the second place winner?
We've been doing that sometimes. Add a couple things. Yeah, that's great, Joe. I think we will carry some of those over if it's a dry, quarter, and bring some of those whoever was voted for the top 3. Actually, I usually take 10 out of probably 40 applications, right, and bring those 10 to the trustees. So sometimes there are 5 or 6 that get votes, but the ones with the top 3, top 1 gets the grant. So we've had the case where we reached out to them, phoned them, texted them, emailed them, no response. So then we went to this, second place winner. Actually, we went to a third place winner one time too. I've been dean too long, so it needs to be passed on to somebody here today. No. But I'll take those 10, I'll put them in a Google Doc, and then there's some people that write it in a Word doc, so I'll put them in a Word doc and a Google Doc. And I haven't trained them on to go into the back end to actually vote that way. But I don't think we would be able to take our top 3. I don't know. But anyway, we need people to show up. So we have one of our trustees actually owns a community bar in town that is a great place. He does so many things for the community already. And so we hold our meeting there, which is...
A great bar in Gainesville?
Yeah. The Bull.
Party City.
Yeah. Knitting club and karaoke and sometimes jazz. So it ends our meetings a little bit earlier.
Isn't the university there #1 party school or something like that?
Yeah. Uh-huh. So, anything to add? Yeah.
Because we have a lot of great resources on our board, we look to see if the idea is already being met in the community. And a lot of times we'll be like, all right, another group is already doing this. And so then someone will reach out and say, you should get together with these other community organizations to forward your idea instead of starting a new thing, right? I think that's another thing that we look for, and then look for things that are clear and achievable a lot of the times. So, yeah.
That bar is called The Bull in Gainesville. I'm just going to repeat that. I know Mike already said it, but it's a great place. Yeah, go there.
I guess I would say the only other criteria that I think we try to do is we look at ideas. Sometimes we'll get applications from groups that we know already have access to larger pots of money. And so ours is just going to be this tiny little drop in the bucket. And in that instance, we usually kind of throw them out, even if they're really great ideas, just because we know they could access much more formal grants. And it seems silly for us, our little $1,000 to just kind of get lost in the shuffle. Like we want to have our, to the point that somebody else made, have maximum impact.
So our chapter meets virtually about 85% of the time since the pandemic. We get together and talk about it until we decide. So we explicitly do not vote. We have developed some techniques over the years to try to get to a decision. We'll typically discuss anything that anybody wants to discuss. So anybody who's clicked awesome, who shows up to the meeting, we're going to talk about it. We'll go back however many months anybody wants to go back to talk about an old one. We tend to use Dotmocracy, so if we have a long list, we'll give you 4 dots. You can put them where you want. This will let us narrow down. Now we have a shorter list. You use 3 dots, narrow it down. So it looks a bit like voting, but we're not going to make a choice unless everybody can ultimately move their votes over. So yeah, we try to take a consensus.
Avi and I were talking about the
approach,
difference between Canadians and Americans.
Yeah.
And like, Canadians don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And
Well, we've had in the past meetings where trustees were so unhappy with the result that they said they would leave. And I think we did have that happen once. So we try to not put ourselves in a situation where we can't live with the result. And sometimes that means that we pick something that's nobody's first choice. That we had 2 options. We can't sway the group one way or the other, so we have to pick something else. Different way of doing things.
So it's consensus.
With some structure, yeah. Like I'll push towards a consensus.
The New York chapter gets 250 applications a month. So we used to have all of our trustees reading all of the applications, and that's not possible anymore. And so what we end up doing is we get volunteers from our trustee group, generally 2, maybe 3 people, to read through all of them and essentially shortlist them. So each one of those people essentially will put an awesome on things that they think, should be, that like other people in the group might like. So it might not necessarily be those 2 people, and like it might not be their favorites, but they think it would be sort of worthy of discussion overall. We try to do 2 and not just 1 person, because there are some people who are like, I will never fund a community garden. And so we always like to have a check against that person to be like, okay, fine, put a couple community gardens in there. Then what happens is before the meeting, the rest of the trustees are expected to go through and look through the finalists for anything that's in that short list for the month, and they'll go through those and choose whichever ones they think they would want to talk about during the meeting. And then at our actual meeting, we'll look at all the projects that got generally like 2 or more votes, because that means that at least 2 people in the group liked it enough to think that it warranted a discussion. Last month, we actually only looked at the ones that had 3 or more votes for the month. And we actually, at our meeting lasts about 2 hours. They're all on Zoom these days. And we'll actually read through the applications, especially the ones that get the most votes. We'll actually read them out loud, like somebody will read it. Mostly the like, what is your idea piece of it, in order to make sure that everyone understands what it is that's going on. Because some people may have skimmed it. Some people may just not have looked it over. Some people may have read the first sentence and they're like, another dance program, I'm not voting for that. And then we'll actually read through and they'll be like, oh, wait, that sounds much more awesome than I originally realized. Or they'll read through and somebody who originally voted for it was like, well, that is not at all what I thought it was. Like, they're out. I'm pulling my vote. We'll do that for the meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, we have somebody who's taking notes, like basically all the ones that have been discussed. We'll put it in a Google Sheet, and then we'll vote by emoji at the end of the meeting. So everyone loads up the Google Doc, and with their own emojis, sort of everyone gets 3 votes, and they'll put it on their top 3 that they would like to win. At that point, what generally happens is that we'll have 3 or 4 projects that got the most votes. And we will actually go out after the meeting and call those people and have a conversation with them to find out whether or not the project is really as awesome as we think it is, or whether we just invented the awesomeness in our head. Because sometimes we'll read it over, we'll be like, oh, wouldn't it be great if they did all this stuff? And then it turns out that we just invented that project. That's not at all what they wanted to do.
So do you suggest that to them?
Oh, we will ask them questions about, like, to clarify. If they will say, like, did you mean this? And we don't, like, wholesale invent stuff, but, like, we'll ask, like, did you mean this? Have you ever thought of this? And if they're like, meh, no, we're not gonna be like, you need to do this, obviously. And then at the end of that, we get like a paragraph or two write-up from each of the people that followed up with them, and then we'll do a vote. And we'll do a ranked choice voting, like Google Doc vote. And then whichever wins that is just the winner. So that works almost all the time. There have been times when it's been like real close, but for the most part, like by the end of that, there will be one winner. It might only get 50% of the votes of it, but like we're like, that's the one. But the idea is that hopefully by the end of it, by the end of the meeting, nothing's made it to the final three that like everyone in the group wouldn't be at least comfortable with funding. All right, so you're not like, I do not want that one to win, because if it was the case, then you should have spoken up during the meeting. So it sounds like a lot of process. It's not actually as much as I described it all. It's basically we have the 2-hour meeting. At the end of that, we do our follow-ups over the next week to just try to get the follow-ups done. And then at the end of the following week, we'll do a asynchronous vote. So we don't meet again. Yeah.
So if you had enough money, would you typically be prepared to fund all 4 every month that you go off and talk to?
What was the question?
Yeah, so the question... for the video again. The question was, if we had, 3 or 4x money, would we make 3x votes? Maybe some months, but not necessarily. Like there have been some months when we have gone out, done our reviews, and then come back again and said, you know what, I don't actually think that this is, either this project's gonna happen already, this project actually has a whole bunch of funding, they don't need our $1,000 is not going to be helpful, or, this is actually way too early in the process, they couldn't use the money if we gave it to them yet, it's like way too early, we're gonna encourage them to reapply. So not necessarily. I don't know.
We didn't get Toronto.
The question was how many trustees do we have? We have about, we're low. I mean, we have 10 right now, I think, 9 or 10. We're trying, we like to hover around like 13, but we lost a bunch of trustees recently.
Over to Toronto, we did you right. Sure.
In San Francisco, we have you reminded me, Jesse, when we do have a question about some, we will deputize people. Like if we pick somebody who we think should win, but we're not sure we understand their proposal, we'll deputize somebody and say, you decide by talking to them, and just make the decision right there on the spot. And while you're talking to them, you can say, well, thanks for that info, or you can say, very cool, we're going to give you the grant. And the way that we do that is we front-end load our trustees by having only trustworthy people who trust each other. It's a radical trust community, and it also simplifies by not having extra systematized stuff that could just be quick decision right on the spot.
Like Orlando.
Cool. So in Toronto, we have a process that in many ways amalgamates a lot of what's been discussed. All our meetings are virtual, though we have in-person social gatherings that are separate from the grant-making process. Any trustee can read through all the applications and can also hide any applications that they feel like just don't fit. If it's a business, if it's a duplicate, whatever. But we don't expect that everyone will have read it. And so when we get to the meeting, we will look generally at like the top 2 or 3 vote getters, plus any project that people want to like champion. We will read through them quickly, though, not out loud, so that people can familiarize themselves with them. Then we talk through the project, and we talk through each project in sequence, and then after the discussion, the overall discussion, occasionally there's a clear consensus winner, but usually we go to a ranked choice vote. So we just use one of the ranked choice voting websites. I'll put in each of the projects, send out the link, and then people vote, and we just go with, we will see the result of the ranked choice vote. That is generally our winner. We do ask the question, like, does anybody have any concerns? Like, would this project winning be an issue for anybody? And like, that's actually never happened, but it did happen in Chicago, which is kind of what we've patterned ourselves off of. And if there is like someone who's like, actually, I have a fundamental concern with this project, then we would talk about it and very likely go with a different one. Because we don't want to get in that situation where someone's like, this project actually really runs against my values or some other concern. We haven't usually, I don't think we've ever had a case where like we think this project is going to win, but we want to go ask them a question first. But we do sometimes assign follow-ups to other people in the chapter. Like somebody will volunteer to write, to ask a question, sort of suggest that they reapply with more details. And we also keep a running list. We keep ours in a Slack list, but sort of the same thing as the Google Sheet of just like, these are rolling projects that we want to consider in the future. And we have funded a project off of that. I think that's it. I don't know, is there anything else you can think of from?
I was going to say that in the discussion process.
Could you hold the mic up?
I'm sorry. In the discussion process, one of the important parts of being able to have that screen share that Cobble likes to use is that oftentimes we'll have a front runner, and a couple of times, especially with archival work, we've had archive front runners not get the award, in particular over the fact of how that material is going to be disseminated after it's been gathered, and where is it going to be housed afterwards. So sometimes that has led to important questions about viability of project.
Yeah.
I feel the fact that people had to sit down and go, well, how is this really going to be executed?
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of the qualities we look for, it will be a lot of things we talked about, like, does $1,000 make a difference, a concrete difference? Is this something that's likely to happen anyway? Is it realistic that they're actually going to do the project? Do they have a good breakdown of funds? Things like, is it something similar to what we funded before? What is the community? Things like that. So.
Has anyone had something you funded, but it didn't happen?
Yes. The very first Toronto grant ever from the first version of the chapter never happened.
And did you do anything about that?
No. I mean, I don't think they did back in the past, but that person actually came back, applied again in the current iteration, and was the person who did art on Barton, the project we were talking about. So, like, we were no strings attached, and it worked out.
Yeah, we had someone that couldn't do it and said, do you want me to give them the money back? And we said, no.
Yeah, we had the same thing. She wanted to give them the money back. We said, no, you do something else with it.
No strings attached.
I mean, without any follow-up, we wouldn't know on a couple of them. Like, right? Like, okay, we just assume you did it.
We just assume they did.
That's a better way.
Let's see. DC is a very, I think, somewhat unique way that we do things. We just recently consistently started getting more than 50 grants applications a month. And sometimes it's a lot more. Like, we had 90 in January. So traditionally the way it works is the trustees go through and read the grants, and they use the awesome button to make a short list. And then I compile a short list of the short lists, and the ones that get the most likes go to the actual meeting. It's usually 3 to 5 grants. Occasionally we've had theme grants, and so I'll go through and like make sure that the only ones that we're talking about are on that theme. The meetings are in person. We were able to hold them virtually during COVID, but it required the use of a whiteboard app that subsequently has changed how the app functions and doesn't facilitate what we needed it for anymore. So I don't know how we could do what we do virtually. There's 3 rounds of voting. I call it deconstructed ranked choice voting. The first vote is they're on the wall, and you put your sticky note on the one you want. You've read it, whatever, right? Everybody gets 1.5 votes also, so you get two votes that you can do. One of them's weighted, and guests are able to vote. So like the previous grant winner votes on the next grant winner if they're there. And then we do 3 rounds of voting. The first round is, like you talked about, only positive stuff. Why is this awesome? What do I like about it? How does it meet the community's need? What's cool? Why is this awesome? And then if you change your mind, change your mind. And we do another round of voting. People move their votes around. Sometimes there's not a whole lot going on. Sometimes that conversation was significant, and the whole board will change. And then we do questions, concerns. One of the things that's kind of unique about the DC chapter is that we are only focused on the city. DC is not a physically large place. It's 10 square miles. Most of the population doesn't live in DC. They live around the city. And we specifically focus only on the city. And we used to have a sort of understandable problem that we would get into the grant and then realize like, oh, this isn't going to happen in DC. This is going to happen somewhere else, right? And so we added a question on the application itself that said, what ward of the city will this project take place in? So that from the jump, from the very beginning, we can know that it's going to happen in the city and we don't have to talk about it or figure it out. But we used to have to figure it out at one point during the grant meeting. Somebody would just be, scrolling, looking up things, doing research. And we recently had, about a year and a half ago maybe, we had a grant application that, not caused, but I chose to add to that second set of discussion, moral ambiguity. Do I feel okay about this? Does that? And that particular thing was a haunted house for domestic violence survivors. And it was a multifaceted project. But as we got to it, we all kind of went, is that really the best way to do this? And ultimately we decided that we were just going to fund it. It's no strings attached. It's not for us to say how they need to do what they need to do. And since then, moral ambiguity is a thing that I try to make sure that we're talking about because it comes up. It's a real thing. And so then if any of that changes your mind, there's a third opportunity to vote, and we vote. And hopefully at that point we have a majority of the votes up there, which it's probably usually the case. We don't really have too much deadlock sort of situations going on. And then we tell them, hey, congratulations, you won.
Great.
During that process, part of the decision is also, can we help this? Can we help them another way without money is the question. And that's personal resources that we have available or things that we know are in the community. And we use 4 criteria. Is it awesome? That's a subjective thing. That's what we're there to talk about. Will $1,000 make a difference? Is it DC specific? And is it timely? Because we do this pretty regularly. And so if somebody's now asking us for Halloween plans, we're not going to even consider it. And that's the end of it, I think.
Thanks.